Hi guys, Troy here, and we're going to be doing today what we're going to call Fiduciary Training 2.0. This is a video version of what we used to do in person. I think it's really helpful to do it as a video because a lot of people have made changes at work with new members of the retirement plan committee, and a lot of people are just not meeting in person as much after the pandemic. And so we're going to cover all of these things in some really, really brief videos. There'll be new videos periodically, um, at least once a year, if not a couple times a year. There'll be new videos that kind of bring you up to speed on retirement plan or fiduciary training. And then anytime you have a new member of the retirement plan committee, it's super easy to kind of show them the videos and bring them up to speed. So, first question. Do you know what the very first task is when you're setting up a workplace retirement plan? You guys have probably already done that because I helped you do this, but it's setting up a retirement plan committee. All right. You've got to figure out who the plan fiduciaries are. Now, I will say if I were a plan fiduciary, the very first thing I'd be looking for is a plan fiduciary advisor. I'm actually a certified plan fiduciary advisor or a CPFA. That's a very specific designation in our industry, not held by very many people who actually serve retirement plans. But even a CPFA doesn't actually custody the assets. We don't actually keep track in terms of the records of the plan. It still requires an outside record keeper. Your record keeper is most likely going to be a bank, mutual fund company, or an insurance company. And there are two different aspects to your service provider. There's a record keeping aspect and there's an administrative aspect. Many times those are bundled together in what's called a bundled solution, but many times those are handled by two separate companies in what's called an unbundled environment. So there might be a record keeper as well as a plan administrator or third party administrator, TPA. Personally, I'm not a big fan of having an outside TPA who generally adds cost but not value, unless they do add value, which they can do under ERISA. There's a provision in ERISA called ERISA 316 that allows them to be an administrative fiduciary. It takes a lot of fiduciary responsibility off your plate. Now, I will say, by the way, that as a CPFA, I cannot serve as an administrative fiduciary. I'm not an administrator. I can serve as a 321 and 338 investment fiduciary. Our goal, and we'll explain what all these things are in some subsequent videos, our role is to make sure that all the seats at the table are filled, including the ERISA 402A named fiduciary, someone other than you named as the plan fiduciary. So the CPFA designation, I should say, is something that is granted to me as a member of the National Association of Plan Advisors, also called NAPA, not the wine country Napa, but the plan advisors who specialize in retirement plans. NAPA is actually a subset of the American Retirement Association. So, what is fiduciary training? Is it even required? And what's the role of a certified plan fiduciary advisor? Great questions. Let's start right there with our fiduciary training. What is it and is it required? It's not required. It's a best practice. It's strongly encouraged, but it's not required, at least not yet. It's something that the DOL is encouraging because as they've done audits over the years with plan fiduciaries, they are surprised by how many plan fiduciaries don't understand that they are plan fiduciaries. How many people are in retirement plan committees or how many people are in plan sponsor roles who don't understand their fiduciary responsibility. So the Department of Labor is encouraging us to have fiduciary training, but it's not a requirement, not yet. What is the role of a certified plan fiduciary advisor? Well, my role is as a CPFA to serve as a fiduciary to your plan, to act in the best interest of plan participants and required to act with care, skill, prudence, and diligence, and to avoid prohibited transactions and to diversify the investments and to follow the plan document. But just as important, to train others on the committee to do the same. So, as much as anything else, that's the reason why we're doing fiduciary training, is because I'm required as a part of my designation to do fiduciary training. So, which are some of the best practices for fiduciary training? Um, I'm going to go through different things here in some of our videos where I'm going to be showing you the answer. Obviously, there's not a test at the end of this, but it would help you to kind of think through these and to decide and think about which one you think the best answers are. So, which of the following are the best practices for fiduciary training? Is it to document fiduciary training? Yes. As the Department of Labor says, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. We definitely want to document it. Is it to have fiduciary training every 2 years? I actually say probably more often than that. I would say at least annually we need to be doing fiduciary training. And these videos are going to easily allow us to accomplish that by having one or two short videos a year and then being able to document in the minutes that we actually did fiduciary training. Is it to have a separate meeting devoted to fiduciary training? That's actually considered a best practice, but you're too busy. I mean, I'm sure you're way too busy to do a completely separate meeting just for fiduciary training. That sounds really, well, interesting to me, probably sounds really boring to you. So we're going to do these short videos, and that's an easier way of accomplishing that. What about having a process to train new committee members when they join the retirement plan committee? That's really important because as your new committee members join, we always feel the need to try to bring them up to speed with anything that they might have missed. What about requiring committee members to have a particular credential, a fiduciary credential to serve on the committee? Don't worry, that's not a requirement. It's not even really considered a best practice. I have my credentials as a certified plan fiduciary advisor. You're not required to have any credentials to serve on a retirement plan committee. But best practice would be to have some type of curriculum or video of the fiduciary training so that we can easily introduce new committee members to this process. So let's close with this idea of what is the annual best practices for planned fiduciaries? Is it to review the health and wellness system, conduct fiduciary training, review the errors from the regulators, consult with an ERISA attorney, review the retirement plan committee charter? What are the things that we need to be doing every single year? So reviewing the due diligence file, yes, that is something that we do as we maintain it, but you guys as a committee should certainly be looking at the due diligence file on an annual basis. What about conducting fiduciary training? Yes, and documenting it, but at least on an annual basis. What about reviewing the errors that come from the regulators? That's actually considered to be a good practice or a best practice. Every year, the regulators publish a list the top 10 mistakes that were made. So we can look at those lists. They're actually available online at irs.gov, where the DOL and the IRS publishes a list of mistakes that were made. What about consulting with an ERISA attorney? Hopefully not. You only need to do that if errors occur. So I hope that you're not consulting with an ERISA attorney once a year. That would mean that we have lots of errors that need to be corrected. What about reviewing the retirement plan committee charter? That actually is really considered to be a great annual best practice. Now, I will say this, you're not required to have a formal retirement plan committee charter. That's not required, but there should be some type of rules of engagement. So call it whatever you want to. We call it a committee charter, but you need to have something in place that determines kind of what is the purpose and authority of the committee and who are the members of the committee. And even as importantly as that anything else, what are the frequency of the meetings and what constitutes a quorum? If you're on a very large retirement plan committee, it may not be possible every single time you meet for every single person to be there. So we need to know, are we able to do business if we're missing some people that are on the committee? How many people can we miss and still conduct business? And yeah, we need to review that, whether it's the charter or rules of engagement or whatever you call it, we need to review that on an annual basis. All right. So that's all we're going to cover for today. Let me know if you have any questions at all. You guys know how to reach me, and it certainly is a pleasure for me to serve you. And we enjoy making sure that you guys are all better at serving your committee and serving your employees.